So here we are playing Parthenon. Got a new Archon for the turn. Obviously it's daylight now, so things are a little different for me. But we draw a new card. Raiders. Raiders from the coastal cities prey upon islands, unable to fashion weapons. Every island that does not reveal an ore commodity during the event phase loses all of its commodities. Ouch! Well, let's see. This guy has one. He's okay. Luckily, it's before production. This guy has one, so he's okay. This guy with his 3 bull, planning on shipping it, took the turn off for that, right? He loses it all. This guy only has grapes, so he no longer has grapes. Roads, 3 timber commodities, same problem. He threw everything else. Well, he doesn't have weapons. And finally here, a pair of grain, same problem. Gone. The other events don't really matter. Those take place in their specific times. So the Archon really hasn't been able to have an effect yet on the game. Okay, where are we next? Production. I'll hand out the cards, and then I'll start doing the trading. We know where everything's going to fall already. Everybody's got a certain amount of production. It just comes to them. There's no decisions to make there. But we'll talk if there's any trading. Well, unlike last turn, nobody actually traded this time. Crete really wanted to. They're sitting on a couple ore and 3 grain. But there's a problem. Everyone else wants to take advantage, pretty much. The only exception is maybe Naxos, who has a bunch of ore and a timber. They can hold off. But everyone else wants to go to Egypt, and they have at least one of the resources and maybe not ore available, or don't want to hold so many cards to make that gold trade, the one-time gold trade. Now the people who have the real bonus here, or we thought had the real bonus, like the 3 timber person or the 3 wool person, they have to go this turn. Unlike last turn where they wanted to hold off, well, this event is there. It's going to come up again next turn, and if they don't get ore, they're not going to be able to hold their cards, and they can't hold 3 of them anymore. So the payoff hasn't, whatever advantage that they were seeing out of trading 6, grabbing 6 gold at once, that's gone away. So the question is, can this guy get anything? And the only person he would perhaps be able to trade with, this guy here has ore. He can hold on to his cards. Some of the others also might have been willing to. So for example, this guy has only 3 timber. Well, that's too many. He can't hold that anymore. Still enough wool, enough timber. So the only person who might have been willing to is sitting here, and he's got already enough ore. He doesn't have to trade, and he doesn't have anything. They're both holding ore and grain. So there's no real trade available there. So now I'm going to set out those fleets. Now everybody only has 1 ship because nobody had a gold yet. And I think just about everybody's going to go to Egypt. There might be some exceptions. Crete might decide, I don't need to. Alright, well, we'll see what ends up happening there. So everybody's sailed off to Egypt with the exception of the Naxos fleet. The reason that didn't go, he's hoping to gather up a 2nd timber. Now, what I'm going to have to do, though, is mark down this special Year 1 Egypt thing. Who used the Egyptian supplies? Alright, well, let's take a look at one person's trades and try to figure out what they're doing. First of all, they have a couple cards at home, an ore and an olives, that I got to keep track of. But the Archon picks them to go first. And they have 3 wool. Okay, well, right off the bat, they're going to spend 3 wool and get 3 gold for that. They want that. Now, oh, they didn't make it yet. Because here's the thing. I got to draw a hazard. before that happens. So I draw one hazard, and it's a storm. Now if you notice, the benevolent deity prevents the storm from happening on the first hazard. So that's going to go away, and we draw again, and oh boy, it's another storm. Every fleet must choose a new destination. Fleets traveling to neighboring lands may not switch to foreign lands, and vice versa. Now, the first one had a different effect. They immediately return home, draw no more hazard cards of for the affected fleets. But this one says every fleet must choose a new destination. So everybody's going to scatter. They're not making it to Egypt. They've got to figure out where they're going to go. It's a weird situation, but okay, everybody was planning on Egypt. Now they got to go somewhere else, and they've got to go to another foreign land. They're going to have to make those decisions, and I'll come back after everybody's done theirs. So everyone was blown off course to Italy. Why Italy? Because you can buy soldiers in Italy, armies. Armies are cool because they can allow you to increase your production. The warships don't allow that. They'd have been available in Carthage. Let's see what the Harbor Straits card is. It's a blockade. All passage has been blocked by a hostile armada. Every fleet must reveal a warship in order to trade. Discard this card if 2 warships are revealed during the same season. Well, nobody made it. And everybody gets blown home with no trades. Now this is going to make every player have a bit of a difficulty when they come to their purchasing round. They were planning on making these trades to Egypt. Well, they're not going to, and they didn't get to trade with each other because they were planning on that. This also remains in effect for the rest of the year. Now, that's only one more turn. But it could well be that if more hazards come up, Egypt might not end up being exploited in this after this advantageous event. All right, well, we're going to go to the build phase, and then people have to discard their cards and choose an Archon. So people are going to want to get down to what? Either one of each card, or perhaps 3 of one card. They have to remember, or 3 cards. They have to remember to keep an ore card, though, because of those raiders. If they don't have an ore, they want to spend everything they got. Okay, so let's look at the trade-ins for purchases here. Starting first with Skiros. They have a pile of stuff. They can only keep 3 cards if they want to keep their wool. So they'll keep an ore and 2 wool. They could have instead kept an ore, a wool, and an olive, but they produce more olives. And the other option would have been to build something, but they'd have to give up their ore to do that because they've got their cheap village, all their cheaper villages in place, so the only one available is a 3 basic cost grain village. They can't buy that and hold anything. Over here on Lemnos, they threw away 3 grapes and a valuable timber. Now you might question throwing that much away, but the reason is they're able to hold 3 cards, an ore and 2 timber. Again, made into that choice of having to either give up their ore to build anything, or hold on to cards that would eventually, you know, either they could give up on making it to Egypt with the extra cards they have, which might be reasonable, because who knows, maybe the hazards next turn are going to screw everyone too. Alright, let's see what happens over here. We got another throwing away? No. We got someone who could buy a cheap olive village. That's only 2 for them. And they spent 2 basics and olives and a wool in order to get that. So they actually improved their production, and they're going to be holding 2 cards. They're both wool. That's a shame. They're going to lose them to the raiders if they can't think of something to do before then, which seems unlikely, but maybe an event will come up. Alright, over here, these guys also played an ore and a grain to get a cheaper grain village. And that'll give them basically their maximal production here. If they had to throw an ore away, actually they don't have to throw an ore away. They can keep an ore, because they only have 3 cards left. And 2 of them are ore, 1's a timber. The timber's of value to them. And the ore, well, might as well. Did I do this right? They built a grain village, yeah? Okay. Over here, we've got another 2-point village, this time a grape village. And he's buying that with a timber and a grapes. It's got to be different commodities. And that allows him to hold 2 cards, both timber. Again, he's going to lose those if something magical doesn't happen. But what else can you do? The other options with basics are really just more villages. The only thing up there is the tool workshop, and you can't do that without some kind of trading, even among themselves. Over here, well, this guy's just pitching a couple of grain. And he's going to hold 3 cards as well. A couple of ore, protect his grain. Now I've got to cut the deals for the Archon. And not sure quite how that's going to fall this time, so I'll come back in a moment. This time, everybody worked it out right. Skyros, Lemnos, Naxos, and Crete agreed, let's just draw lots or roll a die or whatever for which one of us we're all going to vote for. So 3 of the 4 will vote for that one. And it turned out Naxos won that. Everybody did vote for them. And Chios and Rhodes, who are the people who have the biggest bonus off this, presumably, depending on their hand management, etc. They're kind of getting left behind in some other ways, so I don't know how valuable they really are. But on the other hand, Archon has not proven to be a valuable position in the game. Move on to the next year card in a moment. Okay, so last turn of the first year, let's see what comes up. Our event is going to be a drought. Lack of rainfall forces the islands without stored up wine to spend all their goods to survive. Every island that does not reveal a grapes commodity loses all its commodities. It doesn't really matter what order these go in, or then grapes. I'm going to look at my... well, he doesn't really care. He's got ore, but if you don't have ore and you don't have grapes, you're in trouble. So it really doesn't make a difference. He's going to lose his stored commodities as well. And this is, you know, really a painful year it's turning out to be. Let's look at the next one. Same issue. I doubt that many people have managed to hold both. Same issue. Same. Everybody, you know, the people are holding 2 timber and an ore, 2 wool and an ore, because they want to make that trade. I don't think anybody went out of their way to hold grapes. Now, some people may have accidentally held some, but it doesn't look like it. So everybody's back at their starting place. And we do production and trade. Now, people might want to consider trading, because if they don't do any trading, this is the only place that they're going to be able... They're going to have to make that shipment to Egypt this turn. Turns out they had to last turn. It's just nobody knew it. But now they know. If they don't make that shipment to Egypt, what are they going to get? And they may want to consider at least a minor trade amongst themselves and then try to risk the larger one. I'll do the production and come back and see after people have made any trades they might. So again, the lure of Egypt is too much, and everybody refused to trade except Crete, who was stuck with a handful of stuff that they didn't really have a good use for. Now, they managed to cut a deal with Rhodes, and they gave Rhodes a grain in exchange for, I think, a grape, which Rhodes was happy with. But everybody, including Crete, is sending a fleet out to Egypt. And now we draw 2 hazard cards again. First one's a safe journey. And the second one is another safe journey. Everybody's there, and they're going to be able to make trades. I'll take care of the trades and the purchasing at the same time. I know that's not quite right, but it'll help me to make my decision making, and I'll come back after I've done both of those. Okay, people have come home. Let me look over what they're going to build, but let's look at the first decision here, which is actually the Archon is going to build first. He wants to build gold and papyrus to build himself an academy. The big bonus of an academy is that he gets, and he wanted to go first because he gets the first choice of the different philosophies. And looking at these, Epicureanism, he can choose to ignore a harbor status card for the year. That's interesting. Duplicate the power of another academy's philosophy. That's going to be easy enough eventually. Once per game. That sounds like something you can wait on. Once per year, ignore the event card for the year. Wow, that's kind of tasty too. We see how painful some of those can be. Once per season, before trading, you can exchange all of one basic commodity that you like at a land for an equal amount. Now, you have to go to you have to actually sail out and trade to do this, and convince people to give you something else in quantity. That could be a deal with something like the Egyptian card that came up this time. How likely is something going to be that bonus? I don't know. Once per year during the journey phase, you can declare one of your fleets can ignore all hazard cards. Again, very interesting. I'm going to take the Epicureanism, however, and I think that's the one that I see as the most interesting. Now, nobody else can take that, but they can buy it using their academy and spending a gold for each philosophy they already own in order to add to it. Let's look at the next player who chose one. And he's just going to go around in a circle. Actually, he may want to hit the people with the timber and the wool last, so he's going to hold off on them. He thinks they have a slight advantage. So he'll jump to Crete. And Crete spent a gold card to get a second fleet. Remember, the game seemed to state that having your second fleet early is a really important idea. Well, the Crete player is going to take that idea to heart and see if that's actually the case. I didn't see any indication in this first turn, but maybe in the second turn it gets nastier. And then he spent 3 basic commodities of different type to get his expensive village. Wants more productive capability of something that he can't get as easily. It's a more interesting possibility than, you know, being able to build armies or something like that. Over here to Skyros, who actually has 2 wool, and this one has 2 timber. He's not as happy with those, but we'll let them go next. Skyros actually bought another academy. Now, he's set up for this. He didn't have to pick to buy this at this point, but he's got a papyrus. What are you going to do with papyrus except buy an academy, right? So that's what he's going to do. Now, he cannot choose Epicureanism. He'll ignore the event card with nihilism. And that seems like a good option. And already we're seeing some clutter on the card locations, but we'll see how it works out. That's all he bought. Pull that back. Naxos already came back as well. And now let's look at the next one. We're going to go over here to Lemnos, who bought a second fleet and an expensive wool village. And that's red. Now we'll do Chios, who chose to buy a second fleet. Whoops. And an academy. And you might say, well, why these academies? Aren't there other things you can buy? Yes, there are, and maybe I'm being silly by not picking some of those others. He's gonna take He's going to grab Stoicism. Thinks that's more interesting than some of the others. And that buries that. The reason so many people went for the Academy is the other options require that you pay goods to use their ability. So they could have, for the same price, say, gotten a fortress and build an army and be able to build armies. But if you look at the fortress over here, it's spend a grain, a grape, and an olive to build an army. So you don't get an immediate advantage. Once you start buying those armies, it's cool, but can you get them? It's hard to tell. All right, and I just was a little hesitant to do that with any of my players. Maybe sort of a group thing here. Over here, we got another fleet for Rhodes. And that third village. Now, these people who bought a third village probably couldn't buy anything else. That was their only real option. They didn't have... Rhodes, had they sent more of their stuff forward, they had enough cash on hand, etc., that they could have bought something, but they left some of their materials at home and didn't trade them. So they couldn't come back and get a second thing because they made that deal with Crete, actually. And held on to it. Okay, so that's where we are. Got to make a choice on the Archon, and that's the end of the turn. What that means, the year 1 events go away. We're going to have year 2 events show up. And the harbor cards also reappear. Get these guys in place. I've got harbor status cards that I've got to place here in Italy and in Egypt because those were revealed. The rest of these just go away, although actually the harbor status card could conceivably come back up. So I'll put it here just to remember to reshuffle it. And I'll be back in a moment to tell you how the Archons fell. I'll see what kind of deals get cut here. So the perception is that the strongest player is actually Naxos, sitting on a oh no, not Naxos. Well, they got the Academy, but somebody got a fleet in the Academy. Chios got the fleet and the Academy. Naxos also has the Academy and an extra village, which puts them in kind of a good shape. Those people with just the villages, with just a third village and 2 fleets, which is Crete, Rhodes, and Lemnos, are viewed as the weaker players, and people were willing to support them. It turned out Crete kind of won everybody's admiration the more, in part because Rhodes had made a good deal with them in their mind and is feeling kind of close and cuddly. Alright, I'm going to load this one up.